So the whole reason to exempt Puerto Rico from the Jones Act is not just because of the prices and the fact that, it's unfair for an island that has one of the highest unemployment rates in the United States, period. Not fair for an island that it does not get salaries at the level of the United States, but yet we're paying over 15 to 25% more. The sales tax in Puerto Rico is 11.5%. In New York City, it's 8.35. And New York City is one of the most expensive cities in the world. Yet Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans are paying 11.5%. The kilowatt hour for electricity in Puerto Rico is more than Con Edison here in New York City. And I can go on and all these issues that affect Puerto Rico. So the fact that the Jones Act in Puerto Rico affects us in many more ways, the fact that the food, 80+% of all the food in Puerto Rico that we consume comes from outside of Puerto Rico, which means that the majority of the foods that we're eating in Puerto Rico, pasteurized, homogenized, frozen, whatever, is what we're consuming. And when you eat foods like that are high in sodium because you have to protect them and from rotting and all that stuff, why is it a coincidence that we have one of the highest diabetes rates in the Caribbean? We have one of the highest cancer rates. We have an incredible obesity rate in Puerto Rico. All of this comes from the fact of the foods that we're eating. Are we doing that purposely? No, that's what you have. You go to Puerto Rico, 80-something% of the foods are coming from the outside. So the Jones Act affects us in much more ways than just that the prices are high. It affects us in our health. It affects us in our mental health, our physical health. It affects us also in the area of crime. Like I said earlier, when you have that many bullets and guns in Puerto Rico, they're not coming in, over the mail. You're not buying them shits and getting them shipped to you. When you're getting that in vast amounts, and the type of drugs are in Puerto Rico, they're not coming in with a 1 or 2 yachts coming in. They have to be coming in vast amount, which means if that's the case, let's just think about it. Guns at that amount, where are they coming from? The mob? Nah. Wait a minute. Every year, the United States gets more money for the U.S. military budget. Every year, every couple of years, they upgrade everything. So what do they do with the old guns? What do they do with the old ammunition? Do they throw them away? No, they sell them to third world countries, but also a lot of them go missing. And if somebody has a connection within the military at higher levels, where the missing stuff gets sold in the underground and gets pumped into areas like Puerto Rico, that's a gold mine. Drugs. Don't tell me that Puerto Rico, which is the size 100 by 135, 100 by 35. That's a small speck, man. U.S. satellite reconnaissance, they look at Puerto Rico, Homeland Security, CIA, NSA, constant. They could see a freaking squirrel or a dog walking on a runway in Puerto Rico. And you can't tell me that you can't protect the island from stuff coming in? No. I would think that there are some, follow the money, there's big money to be made. And it's not just from companies who are selling us items and the high prices that we have to pay for shipping of goods. I believe that there's a lot of money being made by the underground, both in the area of munitions, which might be with the U.S., Army or Armed Forces, because that would ask another question. Connect the dots. Why is the issue of the Jones Act an issue of national security? I'll repeat, national security. In the United States, you can do anything. You can kill 15 people and they arrest you. And NSA comes and say, these 2 individuals can't be arrested. Why? Because national security issues. They get released. That's incredible. So if anytime you say national security, you get away with anything. So why is the Jones Act under national security? Think about it. Are there submarines in the waters of the Caribbean? Are there warships about to attack? Why is Puerto Rico considered an issue of national security for the United States with the Jones Act? No, because there's some people in the military that are making some big amounts of money or somehow with that. And I'm sorry if people don't understand this and veterans, but that's a fact. That's number one, connect the dots. Number two, The fact of the people of this all this food that's being sent to Puerto Rico that's homogenized and pasteurized, is it the most healthiest? I don't think so. Maybe some of the foods that are being sent there are almost at the point of expiration. How many people in Puerto Rico actually pick up a piece of meat or a piece of something and look at the expiration date? And you might notice that the expiration date is very close to near, which they do that in the South Bronx, by the way. You go to a lot of supermarkets here and stuff that is on sale, look at it. And it will tell you, oh, this expired yesterday, or it's going to expire tomorrow. Well, I believe that also that's happening for countries like Puerto Rico where they send us stuff that's about to be expired. Not all of it, but a lot. So I think a lot of people are making money off the Jones Act. So much so that I meet once in a while with veterans in Puerto Rico, veterans of independence movement, guys who are in their 80s, guys who have been struggling a lot all their lives, guys who are engineers, guys who are accountants, guys who are attorneys, who are now retired, but they still, support the issue of Puerto Rico independence in whatever way they can at their age. And they've told me, because they talk about Puerto Rico independence, I'm talking about ending the Jones Act. And this was told to me straight out. This one guy tells me, Julio, yo creo que va a haber primero la independencia de Puerto Rico than to get rid of the Jones Act. He said, bro, what you're taking on, it's a major battle. And I said to him, I understand, I do believe, because if you're talking about all these sectors, the Senate is involved. The Senate, look at who the senators are and what committee. Why is it that McCain, a Republican, white, conservative senator from Arizona, there's not too many Puerto Ricans in Arizona, submitted twice a bill in the Senate, not the Congress, the Senate, which is more powerful, to exempt Puerto Rico from the Jones Act. It never got anywhere because in order for a bill, because you don't know the way the American democracy works, you submit a bill, it has to go into committee. In committee, they discuss it. If it's discussed and passed in the committee, then it leaves committee and it goes to whatever other sector has to go to, then go to the floor of the Senate, and people in the Senate vote for a law. Well, his bills never left committee. A powerful senator like Senator McCain, a bill never left committee. Why? The chair of the committee never let it go out of the committee, never put it up for discussion. That's the power of a chair of a committee, by the way. You decide what gets on the agenda. You decide what's a priority. That wasn't a priority. So who was blocking that? When a senator as powerful as McCain could not get a bill out of committee for something that doesn't affect his community. So, it affects Puerto Ricans and, these citizens of America that live in an island. Nobody should have given a damn. They should have come out of committee, but it never did. Why? So somehow the Senate and U.S. Congress is involved, sectors in there that are making money off this shit. Don't touch that. Leave it alone. The former chairman of the Congress, his name eludes me right now, who made life difficult for Obama, his wife, Asian, she owns some ships that take stuff to Puerto Rico. Imagine that. The wife of the head of the Congress, who was the chairman of Congress at that time, his wife owns some of these ships. You think that she would be in favor, or he would be in favor of exempting Puerto Rico from the Jones Act so any other ship can go? I don't think so. So if you look at it, there's a lot of people making money off the Jones Act. And that's why we're focused on it. We're an official, not-for-profit organization in the state of New York to educate and to promote information on the Jones Act and why Puerto Rico should be exempt from the Jones Act. That's our mandate. That's what we incorporated in the state of New York. Now we're going after our 501c3 to be able to raise money, because the way we believe to be able to help Puerto Rico is to pass this Jones Act, or at least to make it so embarrassing for the United States to show why is there a law that prevents Puerto Ricans from having a fair deal when it comes to their economy. If there was no Jones Act, we would have been able to raise enough money to possibly pay a lot of the debt that they say we owe, which by the way is also illegal, but let's just put that for another sector. But the point is that Puerto Rico will be able to raise a lot more money, because the reason that we're paying 11.5% interest, tax, and we're paying so much on other things, is because that money is needed to pay the debt. That's why. So a lot of that stuff could have been saved if we would have been able to have ships that come to Puerto Rico that are not coming in from the United States on vessels that are costing us so much more. That we are the ones who are paying for that. It's the consumer that's paying for that. It's not the government. When you say the government is by the people. So therefore it is us who's paying for that. So that's our goal. Our goal is to exempt Puerto Rico, or at the same time, while we're pushing to exempt Puerto Rico, to educate a lot of people, especially in Congress. So our goal is to be able to set up a website, develop it very professional, have people go on the website, sign a petition, then send that petition to all 435 whatever Congress people and all 100 senators, have them get this petition of something called the Jones Act, affecting 3.5 million U.S. citizens of Puerto Rican descent in an island called Puerto Rico, which half of them probably don't even know what Puerto Rico is, but at least they'll get that. And then on top of that, having set up a website where people can go and click and know who your representatives are at the federal level, your 2 senators and your congressmen, and then give them a script of what to call and just say, hey, what's going on with this Jones Act? Why is this law so unfair to Puerto Rico? Can you say or do something about it? Click and go. And if all 100 senators, if all 435 Congress people get calls from constituents, and Puerto Ricans are all over the United States, so we can, it's conceivable that we can do this, right? Perhaps we might be able to stir a conversation within Congress on something that right now they don't even know what the hell it is on that, making it easier for people who are focused on the Jones Act to be able to help us. And that's why we're going after everybody. It's not just AOC. Yeah, we are talking to people like Richie Torres, that a lot of people were freaked out that why are we talking to Richie Torres, because he's a pro-statehood and he's talking all this shit about, the Israel. Yeah, I don't support none of that. I'm not a pro-statehood, and I definitely don't agree with none of his positions on the Middle East. But the bottom line is, when it comes to Puerto Rico, if he can do anything to help on the issues of Puerto Rico, he's worth talking to. Just like AOC or Nidia. And he has done some stuff on Puerto Rico that's surprising. That's been a little bit more beyond what AOC and Nidia have done. So we don't want to give up on any Congress people. If you want to reach out to all 435 congressmen, why are we going to give up on one that's right in our backyard, who happens to also call himself Puerto Rican, who might not know he's Puerto Rican or doesn't promote himself enough? But if we give up on him, like we should not give up on any congressperson, then we're hurting ourselves. And unfortunately, our community is not down to that. And on that note, I just want to leave one last part to this, because we've been going through it with the Jones Act. Our biggest enemy is not the fact that we are the most surveyed community in the United States. Okay, let's be clear about that. And that's for another chapter, another time, of where I got my details from. We're the most surveyed community. It's not the Muslims, it's not, the Palestinians, it's not the so-called terrorists that they think they have. The most surveyed community in the United States is the Puerto Rican community. Shocks you? Yeah, it should, because a lot of people don't know this. Why? Because we are U.S. citizens. And guess what? We embedded ourselves because of them in this country. So you have Puerto Ricans that are from the Supreme Court down to a sailor who may be just a high school diploma, who's working or is a sailor on the USS Nimitz or Enterprise, $1 billion submarine or $1 billion aircraft carrier, who can easily take a $5 wrench and throw it into the turbine of one of these things and stop a $1 billion submarine. How do you stop that? How do you know that this person who took an oath to protect America, who's now, all gung-ho, if something happens in Puerto Rico, like a Masacre de Ponce, or one of the abuses that have taken place in the past, like the revolution of 1950, that they actually bombed Jayuya, and they actually, shot innocent people, that we don't know too much about those histories. What would a Puerto Rican here who doesn't speak Spanish, who never been to Puerto Rico, but has a tattoo about Puerto Rico, and for some reason feels Puerto Rican, and he's on one of those ships, or he's in a building, or he's in a corporation, or he's in a high density situation, that he could press a button and fuck something up because he feels that what the United States did is wrong. The United States knows that. So you know what security forces do? They're not like us. They don't plan, this happened, so let's work on this. No, they plan on 10-year plans. So they have all scenarios narrated. So they recognize that there's 6 million Puerto Ricans in the United States. How would these 6 million react if something major was to happen in Puerto Rico? Because we are still, we're a colony. And if something happens in Puerto Rico, the United States might react a certain way. Since they don't know how Puerto Ricans would react, and since they don't know how to handle that, what's the best way to control us? It's called dividing us. Now, we've heard that many times. We're like crabs. One tries to get up, the other one brings us down. But it goes beyond that. Imagine a building that has floors the size of Costco. 16 floors underground. One of those floors, an entire floor like Costco, dedicated to the Latino community in the United States. Like what Snowden and what they had revealed, how they listen to it, like this conversation right now, anything that has to do with cell phones, anything with technology, it's way beyond what you think you know. They can actually do this and go with it, and its algorithms pick it all out. So imagine an entire floor the size of Costco. They're monitoring everything that has to do with the Latino community. Why the Latino community? You know why? Because for the first time in the 2010 census, it was revealed that more children of color were born than white children. And that caused what we say in Spanish, el titingo. Freaking corporate America and white America went crazy, especially those in the sectors that are conservative, because they realize, wait a minute, that means you don't have to give any visas for any Latinos coming in here, or any person of color. You can close all the tunnels. You can stop any type of immigration from Latin America. But guess what? It's too late. We're already here. We're already here. And the way we're growing, we're the fastest growing community. And guess who's the fastest growing of all the Latinos? Puerto Ricans. Because our women are the youngest ones for childbearing age. So that's why Puerto Ricans went from the 1-point-something million back in the 60s to almost 6 million now, which they undercounted, right? And continuously growing, right? So how do you control that population? Not knowing how they're going to react. So the best way to control them is to divide and conquer. So that's why in the movement that we have, our greatest enemy is not those who are listening to us, is not those who are trying to divide us, is we ourselves. We are our worst enemy because we're the ones that constantly divide. If someone has a difference, I always been taught this in business. If you have a problem with someone with difference, why can't we call that person? Why can't we say, listen, I have a problem with what you said. I have a problem with what I heard you said. Is it true that you said this? Is it true that you did this? You know what? And agree to disagree, but at least I know what was your logic, because it might help me understand how I can make my argument stronger. It's called debate. We don't debate, we attack. So if someone doesn't like what you're doing, especially now with the internet and all that stuff, they right away put it on the internet, and people unfortunately believe it. I learned this from, because I've always been attacked for numerous things. When I first bought this house, they said I went from a young lord to a slumlord. Nobody bothered to, did I buy a tenement building? Did I buy a building with apartments and I'm kicking people out? No, nobody bothered to check out. When I opened up my first store, Latino Sports, people said that I was dealing drugs. Why? Because they never saw a lot of customers go in because I was selling high-end stuff on sports. They didn't know that behind the glass, I had another company called Moribibi Language Services. I provided interpreters. That's my main form of income, was Moribibi, which I never publicized. I provided interpreters for 28 years to courts in 3 different states for Social Security. Nobody bothered to call me. They assumed that because they don't see too many people coming in, I'm going to Cuba, I'm going to Mexico, I'm going to Puerto Rico. Yo, where is this guy getting all his money from? Yo, wait, they're selling drugs and that shit. So the ignorant people believe that. The majority of my friends and others didn't believe it. I can go on with some of the things that they said, even the most recent one with our awards and Richie Torres. But the bottom line is that I learned something from a guy who went to prison. He was there in prison more time than he had been alive at the time. He was 30-something. He had spent about 17 years in prison for killing a guy. And we became friends. And when I told him, because he was hanging out with me for a while, he kept on hearing this shit because he was hanging out in all the different spots. I said, yo, I went to this place. These guys were talking shit about you. I told him, yo, you don't know who the fuck Julio is, you know? And I said to him, I know, bro. I live with that shit all the time. He said, Julio, let me tell you something. And I'll never forget this. He said, whenever somebody tells you things about that, he says, rumors are created by haters. Promoted by fools, repeated by fools, and believed by idiots. Rumors are created by haters, repeated by fools, and believed by idiots. And that's what we have in our community. We have a lot of fools, a lot of idiots, and a lot of haters. And we're doing it to ourselves because every time I go onto the internet and I see some stuff, somebody's criticizing this one, somebody's criticizing that one, this one's doing work with this one, don't want to work with that one, this one wants to do this one, and me personally from all the stuff. But thank God, instead of me going to my old hood days, I want to go and kick somebody's ass because some stupid shit they said. And I've been very close sometimes, but I don't. I will never attack another Puerto Rican publicly. And I have a lot of reasons, bro. And if I was to write a book, people will freak out with the names because I will give names and last names, first names and last names, and details of stuff that people think, oh, this guy or this person was so cool. I can tell them shit because I've been here since 1956, right? But I won't because I never would attack another Puerto Rican on any public thing. But I will go up to them behind closed doors and say, yo, what the fuck is wrong with you? And if I have to smack them, I would have done that. Now at my age, I don't smack people too much. But I do smack them with intelligence by doing one thing. Don't focus on any of that. Focus on building my business, where I'm doing today. And the fact that we have so many young people that reach out to me because of Job Corps that I help bring to the United States. The fact that, you know, the stuff that we've done with the, you know, the incentives that we brought young people to work with Latino sports. And today they're working in ESPN or they're working in Major League Baseball. The baseball players that never got any attention because they weren't the superstars, but we gave them attention because we wrote an article about them. We made them feel very positive and good. That all makes me feel good. And that's about something that we don't know in our community. Spread the love, man. If you spread the love and help each other, we can then do a lot more. We'd be surprised how further we can get. And I do see that happening, so that's why I have hope. But not in my generation, unfortunately. I see it in young generations in Puerto Rico who are not down with this, aquel dijo que este es independentista y aquel es estadista y aquel es... They don't believe in that shit. They believe in, yo, hay que bregar con Puerto Rico. Hay que ayudar a esta isla. Y yo estoy dispuesto a ayudar y a trabajar con cualquiera que quiera ayudar a esta isla. No me hable a mí de la política, no me hable a mí de estadidad, de independencia, which is what the good thing about the Jones Act that we're working against. We got people in our organization who are pro-statehood. We got people who don't want to change the issue of Puerto Rico. They just want to enhance the Commonwealth. And of course, you got people like me who believe in independence, that we're a colony, we got to change. But guess what? We actually meet and we talk to each other about one thing, which is the Jones Act. We don't talk about you're anti-gay, for gay, you're anti-abortion, for abortion, you're about Christian, and this one is a Catholic, and this one is a Pentecostal. We don't want to talk about that. Can we talk about just one thing? Can we get rid of the Jones Act from Puerto Rico? And everybody who has any sense of decency, if you read and know a little bit of the Jones Act, you can't be for it. And that's what the issue of the Jones Act is.